Hello everyone, this is a 2002 Honda CRV, and before I tell you the solution to fix your air conditioning while all other solutions have failed, I want to give you the history first. If you were like me, you bought a used CRV and you found out that the AC did not work because of a bad design, including you found out there was a recall on it, and they told you you had to replace your entire air conditioning system. You were like me, you tried to pull your hair out as you sweat in your car every day because it wouldn't work. Well, I got fed up one day and I just drove to Walmart and I picked up one of these Arctic freeze things, and say, well, what the heck? Let's see if that works. Well, I'm going to tell you something. It doesn't work initially. The reason why I was hesitant to use one of these charge systems is because I've taken it to the mechanic to have it charged, and every time they put it on, they said that I had plenty of freon. And even if I hook this thing up right now to it, it's going to tell me that I have over 65 psi, which is more than enough. In fact, it's a little too much. So I always thought it wasn't the freon level. Well, after I got fed up with it and my son was helping me, I decided to put the gauge on there, put it on the system on the low end, and then I had him rev the engine. And as he revved the engine, the needle would go down to 0. Well, what does that tell me? It tells me that while the engine is in full use up to around 2,500 RPM, the freon would drop to 0. So here is the trick. The trick is you need to have someone rev the engine up to 2,500 RPM while you add the freon. That is the trick. Because if it is sitting idle, it will show you have plenty of freon. But when you rev the engine, it will drop down. And I'll demonstrate that for you. So to hook up your system, you need to put it on the low pressure valve, which is right here. You just take the cap off and you take your freon and it just snaps. You put it on over it, snap it down, and it snaps on. Now if you look, while the engine is off, it's showing over 100 psi. All right. Now watch when we turn the engine on, what happens. Now turn the air conditioning all the way up. When the air conditioning, it drops down to 65 psi into the normal range. Now into the 55 psi. You can see that my AC clutch down there is spinning and engaged. You see as it's running, the pressure drops even more. Now watch what happens when I rev the engine to 2,500. One sec. Alright, the engine is now revved to 2,000 and it has dropped down. Well, before I filled it, it would drop down to 0. And that's when I added the freon while it's being revved to 2,500 RPM. After I revved the engine up to that 2,500 and added the freon, while the engine is revving, the AC started getting very, very cold. And now it's ice cold. So the key is, my friends, even though when you put it on and you have the engine idling for 10-15 minutes, it will show that you have plenty of freon, 55 psi. But you really don't, because if you have someone rev the engine to 2,500, you'll watch the gauge drop to 0, which means you do not have enough freon. So while it's being revved, that's when you have to add the freon. while someone is in the car revving the engine to 2500. You will watch the needle go up as you add it. I put it in about 10 psi at a time. I'd add some, check it, add some, check it. Got up to about 25 to 30 psi, and then when you idle it, it'll go up to about 65, but that's still fine. You will notice you will have air conditioning. If this works for you, please let me know. Put a comment on there. You may have other issues, but if you're like me, your AC was working. The unit itself is fine. The fans, motors are fine. The belts are fine. The clutch is working. The compressor's working. But it still doesn't have AC. It's because you need to add the freon while the engine is being revved. That is the key. I hope it works for you. One other trick that I did that I think helped was you take some Mr. Clean or Spick and Span or whatever, and what you have to do is go in here. You see the radiator fins? You need to spray that stuff as good as you can with as much soap and get it up in on all the radiator and let it soak for a good 5-10 minutes. Soaking it good with that Spick and Span. Then take a hose pipe and a hose spray and spray it all and get as much gunk out of there as you can. You can use some kind of special radiator spray, but any detergent is going to help, and you're going to clear that out so that you can get maximum airflow through your radiator and cooling. That's another trick to it.